Welcome. Hello. My name is Pratik Verma, and I am a group product manager inside of Azure Data. And I'm super excited to share with you a little bit about how Azure Purview can help your organization tame data sprawl and have good governance of your data estate. We all know here that data assets are growing every day. New data sets are coming in. You're utilizing it to digitally transform your data estate, digitally transform your business. But at the same time, the problem boils down into if you don't manage your data governance properly, your data estate ends up leading to data sprawl and then unmanageability, which leads to problems in making decisions based on your data. And typically managing the data estate and organizing it and making sure it's accessible is a thing that falls under the head of chief data officers, your VP of data and analytics inside of these organizations. Now, from a business perspective, their goal is to make data as easily accessible to as wide set of users, citizen data scientists inside the company as possible. But at the same time, as they're doing that, they have to ensure that the usage of that data is compliant with all the different regulations that are there or contractual obligations that the team has picked in. And as part of that, they have to figure out how to balance both of these in a dual way. Now, the consumers that chief data officers have to cater to tend to be lots of different business users, technical users, business app developers, folks that need to sort of consume and use data on a regular basis. So how do chief data officers kind of do their job really well? What we found by interviewing hundreds of chief data officers in different organizations from small retail, financial services to larger organizations, we've come up across a common set of themes. The problem statement these chief data officers face is the data estate where data assets are being stored, classified, processed. They happen to be growing and are of varying variety. So you may have data sets all the way on-prem in SQL Server, or you may have in operational systems like SAP, Salesforce, et cetera. And then those data sets then get operationalized into different data sources in the cloud so that you can do bespoke enrichment of it. So if you want to build sort of modern apps using Cosmos DB, you may be using a NoSQL database like that. Or if you're trying to enrich it for data and analysis pipelines to put into downstream systems, you may be using things like Azure Synapse and then consuming them as those in Power BI. The problem boils down is oftentimes the common things for managing governance of data estate that CDOs have to solve for, they tend to do today in silo by silo. So the way you manage the security, the way you classify data happens to be different in SQL Server than it is on a data source, let's say in Cloud Store in Azure. So traditionally, what these CDOs and data analytics teams have been trying to look for is how do you build in agility into the system so you can manage from a single pane of glass data assets across the entire data estate, and then get an understanding of what data is present where, so you can then make it really accessible broadly. And if you get really good at classifying different set of data sets, then you'll be able to apply appropriate type of sort of effort to manage the governance for the 15% of the data estate that tends to be very sensitive and then democratize the rest of the 85% of the data estate, that is miscellaneous information, reference data that is widely usable for everybody. So these are the challenges that in our conversations we've learned, data officers, practitioners share. So this is where Azure Purview comes in. Azure Purview brings in a single pane of glass for managing the data governance for your entire estate, be it on-prem, on our cloud in Microsoft Azure Data Services, or to other clouds as well, including Amazon and Google, and all the way to SaaS application. What's unique in the perspective that we've brought is we are now imagining it into the cloud. So historically, teams have had to, get 3 or 4 different systems, one piece of software for data classification, another piece of software for security management, another piece of software for managing data stewardship, data dictionaries, and then somehow they have to make those things work back and forth together. Now, there's a lot of VMs, infrastructure to manage, then software installation. With Azure Purview, we are introducing a platform as a service offering. So when you bring in and provision Azure Purview account, there's no setup to take. All the necessary infrastructure underneath the covers, be it Cosmos DB, Azure Search, a bunch of scanning infrastructure, all of that is provisioned for you out of the box. So what used to take months for your data engineering teams to get set up to start providing service to data stewards now takes only a few minutes. Now, because we have a PaaS offering, we can rethink how the foundation for data governance needs to be built. Now, unlike other software where you have to be really, focus in on curation through manual efforts and you have to put in a lot of business workflow, we took a different stance. What if you could create an active metadata map about where all your data assets are in any system underneath in one place? And then you could represent that active metadata graph as a graph that connects different data assets together to other data assets and provide you the ability to tag and automatically classify that data. That's what we've brought with Azure Purview. We've created an ability to create an active metadata graph, metadata about your data in one place. So then your users can then serve different scenarios using the same common view of your entire data estate. The first two that we're coming out with are to address the problem of self-service data discovery and for your data stewards to be able to get a bird's eye view of your entire data estate. So let's drill down on the next level of things. This is how we've envisioned and productized Azure Purview. So in the center, you'll see something called the Azure Data Map. This allows your teams to create an automatically curated, always up-to-date map of your data estate underneath. It keeps in one place a set of assets about where files are in your system, where the tables are, what Power BI artifacts are there, all in one place. This data map is automatically populated using a scanning and classification system that's built and provisioned underneath the covers. For data sources on-prem, we provide you the ability to host the scanning infrastructure on your on-prem so that the classifications and automation happens on premises behind your own firewall. And for data sources in the cloud, we connect to the different data sources, scan and classify the content in order to be able to create an active metadata graph. Now, once you've created an active metadata graph that's always kept up to date, then you can use that to power different user experiences. So the first two that we have are the data catalog that is used for your self-service data discovery. And we'll see a demo of that in a few minutes that allows your users to very quickly and easily search for data assets in one place. And then we have another set of experiences aimed at data officers, data stewards, to be able to come in and get a bird's eye view of where your data assets are and what kind of data assets are present in which portion of your data estate. So as we're imagining the Azure Purview account in the cloud, there's two things I'd like you to walk away with. The first one is what we're replacing with Azure Purview as a platform as a service offering is ad hoc business processes that require you to maintain Excel spreadsheets of different data assets where they may be, and then different human beings collaborating to build those things together. We've replaced that with Azure Purview. And because it's cloud-based software, you don't have any infrastructure to manage, and it can scale from as small as a few capacity units to as large as several tens of capacity units. Now, one of the key things that we provided here is the ability to address all of your compliance needs in one place. Because it's active metadata graph is created automatically and it's used to drive the foundation of your data estate, we're able to provide you not only support for Microsoft data sources that we announced in Azure Purview back in December, but pretty soon you're also able to see data sources like Amazon S3 and Teradata be part of data systems that can be brought under management of Azure Purview. Now, our classification infrastructure to scale the ability to define sensitive data sets, define industry views on top of data sets, to set up business or specific systems values tagging that applies equivalently to all of our data estates. And because we're able to register things like Azure Data Factory and bring them under management of Azure Purview as well, you have automatically populated lineages that connect all your data sets from the origination in on-prem systems all the way to consumptions in Power BI through enrichment on Azure Cloud. Now, our business users are able to then come in and add different stewardship experiences around business glossary management, doing a lot of things about, figuring out how different data sets are connected together, being able to annotate the data sets, to manage the workflows of those terms, to really create collaboration among the business users and the data stewards and data consumers so that you can figure out how standardized business terms can be applied holistically to all the data sets in the company. And now that you have the ability to do your workflow for business stewards in one place and data consumers to start consuming the data sets from one single place, one single pane of glass, you now have the ability to really get an understanding of where you are and how effectively is your data estate being governed. And this is where data stewards or data officers or security officers can come into one place and see at a bird's eye view, where is the sensitive information in the data estate? Which data systems is the data assets are present in? And with that, you can now really, for once, truly gain an understanding of your entire data estate, of how sensitive the data is, so you can deliver on your promise of making data accessible where it's not sensitive, and then be compliant when the data is sensitive and needs to be handled in a certain way. I'm really glad to share with you now the actual demo of Azure Purview in action. And what we're going to see is how easy it is to provision Azure Purview, and how data consumers can very quickly search for data assets, and how business users can help support those data consumers. So let's go check out what Azure Purview looks like in action. Now let's see what Azure Purview looks like in action inside of the Azure portal. So the first thing I'll do is go into the Microsoft Azure portal, where you can go in and provision a Contoso Purview account in a few minutes. This is valuable because, unlike having to run managed box software, you don't have to worry about provisioning a bunch of resources. You go in, provision Purview accounts, and all the necessary infrastructure for scanning, storage of metadata, for being able to search that using Cosmos DB Azure Search, all of that is taken care of you behind the scenes. The only option you pick is how big of a data map do you want to get started with. And because we're taking advantage of a cloud platform as a service offering with Azure Purview, you're able to start very, very small and then grow to very, very large scales to accommodate your entire data estate. So let's look at how the end users actually see, the business users actually see and interact with Azure Purview. So once you're in Azure portal, you can go in and open Azure Purview Studio. This is where most of your end users, business analysts, data scientists, data stewards, data owners, data officers, security officers, they'll all come to the Azure, this Contoso Purview Studio. Now, you'll notice on the top right, I'm logged in, and because I have come in as a user that has broader privileges inside a Purview account, I see all of the tabs on the left here that's showing me all the different capabilities of Azure Purview. Now, most of the time, let's imagine I am a data scientist trying to run a marketing analytics program. So I'll go in and look for data sets. And as I'm doing that, I don't really exactly know what data sets are available in the estate. So I'll go in and type something like, show me data sets that are containing customer or finance information. Now, with a few single words, I can type in and traverse the entire data estate and find the information about all of the assets in one place, instead of having to go to and connect to a SQL database, Amazon S3 account, Teradata. I find all of the data assets cataloged in one place. Now, you'll notice a couple things. In a very few seconds, I was able to get about 800 some odd results of all the data sets that may be of interest to me. But as a data user, I'm not going to have the patience to go through individually and enumerate across all the different data sets to see what's interesting or not. What I really want is a quick, easy button. So on the left-hand side, I'm looking for data sets that contain email addresses. So by clicking on this particular pivot, which is dynamically populated, I can filter down to specifically 18 results that are of interest to me. So now my job to find the data assets that may be relevant for me for my data analytics project, very, very easy. Now, I don't just have the ability to pivot variety based on classification, and we'll go a little bit more into that later in the session, where we'll see how we made this possible to tag all the different data assets to the pivot filter tags so that it's easy for your data users to go and search all the data sets that are of interest to them. I can look at a variety of different other pivots, business terms around whether this contains, let's say, advisory data services. So I can really go down and filter to a specific table of interest to me. Now, the next step I want to do is, once I look at this data set, I'm going to want to find out more information about the data sets to really determine what's valuable. So if I drill down into a specific data asset, so let's take a look at a customer table in Azure SQL, I'll notice a variety of different things that's populated in one place. I notice that there's a bunch of classifications automatically applied. So they show up as tags on the asset detail page. And you'll notice that there is a bolt sign next to the ones up in here. This bolt indicates that it is one of the built-in automated classifications that are built in the system. So you don't have to spend a lot of time setting up a variety of different classification logic into the product. Now, if I go drill down further, I can see a variety of technical information. On the right-hand side in the bottom, I see the ability to assign glossary terms from this one view. And if I want to find out what does applied technology actually means for my organization, I can click into a system that allows me to look at what is it actually defined as. This is a good opportunity for your data systems and your businesses to standardize commonly known definitions of data sets and terms that may be of use to your knowledge workers, so that you don't worry about, what does a customer actually mean, or what does a customer type actually mean. So check out a variety of different things that we're going to be building in here over the next few months. And it'll be really designed for innovating around how these different tags get stewarded by different users, who's responsible for these data sets, and which are the related terms associated with this particular business glossary term. But let's go back to our original data set here. When I go back home, I can recall some of the recently accessed assets in my view. So I'm going to go drill down to the finance report here. So when I see a finance report in Power BI desktop, previously I'd seen the SQL table, I can find out a variety of information about, where this data asset is coming from. Now, interestingly, if I'm looking at this data set, I want to be able to find out what data set on Azure is this Power BI report powered off of. So if I'm a knowledge worker and I'm looking at a Power BI dashboard, I can trace the lineage of how that dashboard metric came to be from the Power BI report that is powering measures in that dashboard along with the data sets. And if I go all the way, I can trace the fact that this particular Power BI data set is powered by data content from this particular file in cloud storage. Now, the reason why that's important is most of your data supply chain in most large companies starts with collection of data on premises systems, let's say SQL Server, SAP, Teradata's of the world. And oftentimes you're moving that data from there on-prem into the cloud hybrid environment through ETL transformation tools like Azure Data Factory. And once it's in cloud, it's landed, enriched, transformed, and made ready for consumption, where it ends up in Power BI, Tableaus of the world, all over the place. So through that entire supply chain, with Azure Purview, you are able to trace the source of the data, connecting it to the consumption of the data all the way through to the measure. Now, this is really powerful because you can then see if a measure is problematic in a particular data set in one source, in a file in ADLS, and if it is powering all the other downstream dashboards, you'll be able to trace the impact of errors generated in one place. And so if you improve the quality of one data set in the underlying system, then all the downstream systems also get updated. So for the very first time, you're able to see the lineage of data assets across the entire data supply chain. Now, the one thing that people will look at, this is all well and good, you're showing me the outcome, but a lot of times the big problem statement here is, how do I keep my lineage graph current? How do I keep my metadata of the data sets current at all times so that I can find out, what kind of information is present on my data set here? So when you're looking at this information, how do I make sure that this is always current and up to date? So let's go jump into that. Now, this is what a data engineer would do. So they will go in, and when they go into Azure Purview Studio, you will bring and configure a set of data resources under management. So in this particular case, we've created a collection. There's a variety of different LOBs that are storing a bunch of other data sources. Let's go look into what it takes to register a data source to bring it under management. So now on this screen, we've showing what it takes to register a data source. So we click on adding a data source under management of Azure Purview, and you'll notice a couple things pop out. You'll see that there's a bunch of Azure resources that are present, so I can go in and manage the hierarchy of the entire data sets in the subscription that we have. So this allows me to at scale manage data systems in Purview that would not be possible doing it one by one, manually, silo by silo. Now, you'll notice there's a bunch of data sources from Azure, from other clouds. We've got all of our data services from Cosmos DB to Synapse to Power BI, and more are coming on a daily basis. Our goal here, an aspiration here, is to cover any and all of data sources that our customers are using across their entire data estate, whether it is on-prem, in Azure, other clouds, or SaaS. So check out more and more sources coming soon. Now, once you've registered and brought a data source under management, you can set up automated scans to make the population of the data map current at all times. So in this particular screen, what you're seeing is a Azure Data Lake Store account that has been configured for scan for 8 times. So let's go drill down into what a scan actually means. What we've done here is configure a variety of scans. And for different scans, we've picked up different scopes. So some scans go broad, but only collect metadata. Some scans go broad, in a more specific area, a small subset of data sources, but they go deep. They put in a lot of classifications in them. So let's go drill down on this particular one. So in this particular case, this scan is scheduled to run once a month. So the last time this ran was on December 23rd. The first time it ran for 5 minutes. It enumerated over 190 files inside of the cloud store. These could be Parquet files, Avro files, document files, table files, a variety of different systems. And based on content and metadata inspection, you were able to tag 28 of those files with a particular tag. And this is what allowed us to be able to see the search assets inside of the search bases where we were able to pivot using these classifications. So this allows us to be very, very productive. Now, the next time it ran, it identified 203 other data assets, but none of the new files contained any information that required it to be tagged. So this is where you get full freedom to set up the scanning classifications that run in the background. And the more beautiful thing about this is because you're in a cloud service, unlike box software, the infrastructure to run up the scan can be provisioned on demand. It scales out to run the job, and once the job is finished, the system goes away. So you only are responsible for paying for scanning for data sources based on as much as you use. So you have full flexibility of how frequently you want to run it, how deep you want to go, how broad you want to go, and you can tune your price based on that. And this is what allows you to manage your data estate at scale, at cloud scale, rather than at human scale. And it allows your business users to be a lot more productive. So what we saw in summary was how easy it is to go and search for new data sets by doing free-form text filtering. And then we also saw how we connected the data sources through automation so that the data assets can be made searchable easily through automated classification and tags. Now let's jump into, that's a lot of technical automation that allows you to save a lot of time, but let's jump into what your data stewards do on a day-to-day basis. So in a lot of cases, data stewards are looking at different data sets to enumerate and enrich the curation of these, and they're applying different tags, different workflows. So in this particular case, as a data steward, I may have searched for different data sets and looks at I have finance data set. I want to bulk edit and collect, appropriately tag manually through some automation, a specific business term to a particular set of customer data. Maybe I want to say that mark these as authoritative certified data sets. So when I do that, I can go in, select a view. I can add in a set of terms to all these assets. I can go apply account number tag. And then when I apply it, it runs in the background and automatically updates the tag on these 3 customer assets with new terms. So at the end of it, you'll see additional term gets applied. I can remove and close all that, and this allows me to go on and select another set of data sets to be able to tag and communicate to my data users what those data assets actually mean. Now, we saw an example of a term. Let's go deep into how somebody would actually go in and manage the terms. So as data stewards in my data and analytics operation systems, teams, I'm interested in communicating what different types of data sets mean. Oftentimes, people manage these kinds of data dictionaries and data glossary terms in Excel spreadsheets in the cloud. They appropriately apply a lot of manual workflow and process around it. Now with Azure Purview, you're able to come in and import all existing data dictionaries into the product in different formats. So if you have a custom format, you can pick that in. Let's pick system default that allows you to see kind of what kind of information are present. So I can download a sample CSV file and then have an uploaded Excel spreadsheet that contains the contents of different terms and upload it very quickly to jumpstart all my data dictionaries and then bring them all into one place. Now, once they are in one place, I can manage the entire workflow, the life cycle, everything else through the product itself. So as different terms get updated, the information about those terms is under workflow. So in this particular case, we're seeing that advisory service term is well defined, and it's associated with 6 different data assets. So I can find out, how many data assets are impacted by this particular term. You can also keep track of how the business terms were curated itself based on different users. So you're able to see a lot of the workflow and make communicated information. It makes collaboration between the data stewards and the data consumers possible without both of them having to connect with each other and do so in a self-service way. So we covered a fair bit of ground. We saw how easy it is to take Azure Purview and provision it for data engineers. Then we saw how easy it is for end users to search for data assets, find what they're looking for. We saw how easy it is for users to see the lineage of different data assets as they're connected to them across the entire data estate. We saw how you can tag and apply the classifications based on the classification rules that are built into the system, or how they're defined when you want to customize them, so you can automatically scan and classify them across different data sources. And finally, we saw how business stewards actually do their business on a day-to-day basis by using the business glossary term part of Azure Purview. So with that, I wanted to end on the note of how users see an estate-wide view of your data estate at the end of it. So now that you're chugging along, you've got your Purview accounts up and running, your users are consuming it, your data stewards can come in and get estate-wide insights on how the data assets are distributed, so you can manage your data governance workflows very easily. So in this screen, what you're seeing is a heat map of how many assets are present in which portion of your data estate. So this is one pivot of it. Whereas another pivot might be, I want to look at where sensitive data is present in my ecosystem so I can make appropriate controls in place. So in this particular case, you're seeing, personal, government, financial information. So 7 instances of data sources that contain financial information. I may want to treat that differently than data sets that have miscellaneous thing, so that I can be more effective at managing my data estate at scale. So with that, I would like to invite you to go to Azure Purview and spin one out and try playing with it yourself.